Second attempt to make this video, and here we go. Right, I wanted to call this video Understanding Divination, because basically people don't, including those who are actually involved in the industry and also those who say that they are psychics and all the rest of that jazz. And to be honest, I find it rather disheartening that there is quite so much in the way of rank stupidity and very simplistic understandings of what has to be by its very nature, by reason of rationality and of course logical thought, an evidently very complicated subject which many people find rather hit and miss. Okay, and I'm showing you the tools here because it makes a good video. Alright, but let me just quickly remind you, these tools are an irrelevance. Alright, so you can have a look at this board if you want, let it scare you, woo. Fine. It's just a bloody piece of wood, okay? This is just a pack of cards, this is just a box containing a ball of glass in it, okay? It's just physical things, And what is the importance in having these physical things? It adds to a bit of the theatre, because you create an environment so that you can do your whatever the heck it is you do. I mean, when you go into the office, you're probably wearing a suit or you're wearing your work uniform, and the moment you put on your work uniform, you end up in a slightly different state of mind, ready to face the day. All right, or maybe ready to face the day, unless of course you haven't had enough coffee that morning. But the fact of the matter is, when you get out your board and your pendulum and your cards and your little kitsch crystal ball, okay, what you're doing is you're setting a stage. All right, you're making a psychological statement that we're going to do something weird here, and therefore it's more likely that you're going to end up in a slightly appropriate state of mind on the basis that you have sufficiently and appropriately trained it and you have worked out what it is. I was of course rather disheartened that people in the old day, people in the pagan movement who I used to know, they would talk about developing a state of gnosis prior to starting any form of work of this weird nature. And I hated that because I wanted them to explain it, and they tried to explain it in terms of brainwave frequencies and this, that and the other. So I became a lunatic for brainwave entrainment because I wanted to learn what this state of mind called gnosis was. And I learned that there's slower brainwave frequencies like a theta, which can be very focused, and then of course there's your gamma, which is also anomalous, which is much more open and the brain is operating faster. So therefore you got two parts of the spectrum of mind, so to speak, but there's no real clear-cut answer as to precisely where on the brainwave spectrum you should actually be for the purposes of achieving different particular tasks. You can study brainwave tables until you've gone crazy, really, all right, but you won't necessarily find the state of gnosis in there, and I find that rather interesting. There's no hard and fast thing about that, until of course I made the mistake of joining the Christian church, and of course you're taught to pray, and I tended to use prayer in a way that was more magical than it was Christian, because that's, make an educated guess, okay, because that's what I am. But I then learned that it was essentially this state of mind of prayer which seems to be the thing. So using the word gnosis, the sense of singularity of mind or focus on one particular thing as well as this, that and the other, it doesn't make any sense. It's a very bad description of the state of mind. Now, if you're not a religious person, that's a good thing, because then you'll be more objective to your results, or apparent results, no matter how they turn out. But the state of consciousness, the state of mind, still seems to be a state of mind which is open, transcendental, relaxed, and with a certain singularity of intention, which you can use words to do that, to try and help your state of intention get there. Obviously, if you're in a physically bad state of being, and that's affecting your mind, or if your state of mind is appalling because of, I don't know, residual trauma, or having had issues recently which has set you completely off balance and off whack, you're not going to be able to do it. Alright, there's no real way in which you can get into that state of clarity of thought and state of positivity and tranquility. So this state of mind of prayer for the purposes of doing weird stuff is therefore a little bit more elusive than anything else. But it does still seem to be something important. Now, one thing I'll point out is that sometimes the state of mind can be a little bit vertigo-like. And therefore that suggests to me that it's probably operating on the higher frequencies, possibly more like gamma as opposed to theta. Theta is associated with a shamanic state of mind, but on the other hand, necessarily is it. All right, or maybe you have a theta drumming going in the background, but your state of mind, your state of consciousness, is probably a bit more prayerful and transcendental. Because it's in that more prayerful and transcendental state of mind that weird things are more likely to occur. So how does that relate to tools? It doesn't. Okay, it doesn't. These things are essentially useless, but also useful at the same time. Number one, if you are someone who in your normal waking state of consciousness does not enter into this kind of like groovy, beautiful, spiritual gamma brainwave frequency, which is associated with prayer and higher meditation, upper meditation, thinking about moving upwards, that vertigo state in prayer, then you're not going to be able to, interact with that state of mind with as much ease, unless of course you've got some psychological tools which could possibly help you out, right? I mean, let's be honest. If I'm sitting at my computer and I'm writing writing something, or I'm replying to emails, nothing anomalous is going to happen. I'm not going to see my spirit guides. I'm not going to see great remote viewing of this, that, and the other. I would, in fact, just be in a normal, boring, ordinary person state of mind. Right, okay? But when I get out weird and wonderful toys, or if I dress slightly differently and get out weird and wonderful toys, that is a statement to my subconscious mind that I want to do something weird. Therefore, that makes it marginally easier to get into that transcendental state of mind. Now, we can break these things down into different types of experience. Okay? Intuitive, hallucinatory, and ideomotor. Okay? The reason that the crystal ball is hallucinatory is because you're focusing on the reflection. Remember, the method which I used involved the dark mirror principally, not just the clear wall of quartz. If the room was lit like this room is right now, this would not be the right tool for me. Okay, I would want it in a darkened room. I'd want a candle either side of it, possibly something to stop the glare of the candles going straight into my eyes, but still allowing the candlelight to reflect off the sides of my face, left and right hand side of my face. Possibly if I did exclude the candle to a certain extent so it wouldn't shine directly in my eyes, then I wouldn't get a good reflection of my face on the shiny surface. Getting a reflection of your face on the shiny surface and staring into it when you're in a darkened room and you're going into your meditative prayerful state of being, you get a persistence of vision effect. It's like when you stare at a candle flame for a while, and after a while it goes a bit, fuzzy or whatever, and then you look away and you still got the imprints of the candle flame on your retina. You get the same thing with the crystal ball. Your brain will then try and make sense of it. Your brain tries to make sense of this hazy thing, which just is like not got any shape, structure, or form to it, because you're staring into this persistence of vision spot. All right. Then the mind will start to make up what it thinks it could be. That then leads to vision, and vision appearing seemingly in the crystal or on the black mirror. If all of your openness and prayer and meditation and the rest of it is on point sufficiently at that time, the thing that you could see in the crystal ball or in the dark mirror could possibly be connected to the invocations that you're doing. Or maybe where your intention is being sent, for those who try and use the crystal method as a form of remote viewing. So they'll be looking into the reflection of their face on the stone and sending their intention to see things from afar. So therefore it's a form of semi-conscious remote viewing in that respect, or a tool of attempting to see spirits, angels, demons, ghosts, whatever it is that you think you're trying to communicate with your prayer. Right? That's how that works. Semi-hallucinatory. The more advanced method is to go through meditation and dreams and to not have any tools, and to do it all through intention and prayer and meditation, which is difficult. But of course, if you've read The Projection of the Astral Body by Sylvan Muldoon and Hereward Carrington, there may be some tips as to how to explore things that way. I believe that way back in my mid-teens, I actually had an experience of first contact with spirit beings as a result of reading The Projection of the Astral Body by Muldoon and Carrington. So it's worthwhile using that as being a basic resource for some of them, for some opening up. And also all of the meditations which you can do to help give you that state of mind of raising up, raising up, raising up, and going up, 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 up to something divine, appears to do something like reshape your aura or open your chakras or something, which means that in your dreams you're more likely to get vision associated with spiritual forms and forces. That's the way in which it seems. That would be total hallucinatory or dream world, okay, or meditation world. You can, of course, just enter into meditation to get vision as well. Right. Then that's that one discussed and done with for the moment. Right, now, tarot is more an intuitive tool because, let's be honest, if you shuffle the cards and cards come out, to most of our 21st century understanding, it'll be random. Okay, you shuffle the cards, you twist them to get your reversals, you've got random stuff coming out in front of you. Now, there are some instances or situations when you may get something coming out in a particular position on your spread which will seem extra meaningful. That can be of use because it's just like something else happening in life which starts to stimulate thought. So this one's more about thought and intuition, but if you manage to master the semi-hallucinatory methods associated with crystal ball, you can actually get vision when doing tarot. So it becomes more of a tool for clairsentience, it becomes more of a tool for contemplative problem solving. I have actually dealt with a couple of issues in my own life myself as a result of using tarot contemplation just as a way of getting a different point of view. I don't have to listen to it, I don't have to obey it, I don't have to do what it says, but I'm trying to, look into the cards to see whether there's something good which is going to happen. So, am I going to go on a date before the end of the month? Let's ask the cards that, shall we? See if we can get some inspiration from that. Probably not, from what I'm seeing there. Okay, it's just saying that it's talking more about where the communication and the conflict is. We've got two strong one cards there, so purely by the omens type interpretation, you can say that there's going to be conflict going up prior to something good happening, but it might take a bit of time. Alright, so that's if you're reading in that particular way. But also, you could then have a look at the imagery of the cards and to allow yourself to, allow your eyes to go a bit fuzzy or slightly blurred and start to think more in terms of what else is true here and see what impressions come through to your mind. So the clairsentient aspect works in a very similar way to the vision aspects of the crystal ball, but it doesn't necessarily provide you with the same quality of experience. It's just another useful tool. But then, of course, you've got to, maybe have a diary, in which case you write down the results of your own divinations and then cross-reference that with reality as it starts to unfold with the passage of time in the coming months. Can be a very interesting experiment. But you've also got to be thinking about the different levels at which you've been reading to. So therefore, the perspective and the skill development of a person who has mastered, or I say mastered, who has progressed with their use of cartomancy will be very different. Your mind will be different, your way of processing information will be different, your way of feeling information will be different, and ideas and so on and so forth. That's how we discuss the difference between that particular variety of denomination of approach and this particular variety of denomination of approach. Alright? In both cases, these are things which is helping the psychic to actually do their work. These are not things which are definitive. I mean, I can't turn around to you and say, buy yourself a pack of tarot cards, that'll tell you about your future. That would be wrong. It would also be intellectually and morally wrong for me to turn around to you and say, it works, because then there'll be people with very serious diseases who'll be buying themselves packs of tarot cards to try and find out the solution to their health problems, and hey presto, nothing good will happen. So I would be giving false hope if I said something that ridiculous and stupid, which unfortunately some people in the paranormal world still seem to do, because they are ridiculous and they are stupid. Right, next tools. This is where things get weird, because everyone is afraid of the Ouija board. The Ouija board, oh, it's the Ouija board, oh, they frighten me, you'll be in touch with evil forces, I tell you. Oh, forget that. If anyone thinks that this is anything else than just a sodding piece of wood, they are mental. If anyone else thinks that this is anything else but a lump of metal with a chain on it, they are mental. These things have no power. Yes, it is true that there are some theologies out there which state that attempting to communicate with spirits is a bad or evil thing. But the people who are that worried about that and that head up about it haven't really thought anything through, so they might as well just shut the heck up. Right. Humans themselves are sensitive creatures, right? We're sensitive to the sunlight, to the rain. I'm middle-aged now, so I've got arthritis in my kneecaps, and when the weather gets cold or chilly or too dry or too humid, then the body will react and I will feel it in my knees because, humans are sensitive. We're physiologically sensitive. We react to the tides of the moon and of the sun, literally, okay? There's things living inside you right now which is working on their own reproductive cycle based upon the phases of the moon. So, of course, your body and your mind's going to be affected by the phases of the moon. Then, of course, there's ladies with their own lunar cycles and so on and so forth. We are sensitive creatures. We're also perceptually sensitive to things which we receive physically, such as imagery and sound, as well as things which people like me understand we are receiving in our subconscious minds as a result of spiritual interference, possession, strange energies in the world, whatever, and so on and so forth. These experiences teach us, therefore, something about our state of personal development, about our history, about who we are and what we are as people. It needs breaking down and analyzing because that's what growth is about. That's what self-development is about. But what the heck are these about? All right. We've mentioned that there's a different form of psychology or state of mind or orientation of your mind and your being, your aura, your energy field, your perceptions when you're using tarot as opposed to when you're using crystal ball. All right. These things work along two different lines but similar, and they do overlap, just like everything overlaps in the world of the weird. Okay. But this is different. Why is this different? It's because it involves the human components. The human component is essentially that of you either having things going on inside yourself psychologically or the hypothetical spiritual reality having some kind of impact upon you. Just like with the crystal ball, one assumes therefore that one could use these devices for a variety of remote viewing. Therefore, it does act as a useful tool for divination. Most of my own divinations, which I do myself, I would tend to do more likely with tarot because then I've still got the conscious mind being more involved. With the crystal ball or the dark mirror, you're going into a very specific experience for an extended period of time. You've got to have your dark room, your candles, and so on and so forth. But with this thing, it's more about the body. Everything is about the body and how the body is reacting to other things. Now, people who are skeptical or are atheistic and all the rest of it, it should not stop you from buying a Ouija board. Ever. Under any circumstances. These talking board devices are good because they teach you something about you, or indeed how you are experiencing life, the universe, and everything. Now, the type of answers you can get with a pendulum will be dependent upon the movements of the pendulum and how you yourself have trained it. You've got to treat the pendulum like it's a pet. Alright? A pet you have to train. You have to build a relationship with it. You have to build some love with it, affinity with it. And in that respect, people would say you're putting your energy into the pendulum because you're creating some kind of emotional empathic link to it. Therefore, it stops feeling like it's something different to you and separate to you and starts being something that you could possibly see as being an extension of yourself and your mind. Training yourself in the right ways of holding the pendulum is another thing which you have to work on. And then it's a question of the questioning and answers and seeing what kind of reaction occurs. And again, it's a question of time. But again, the prayerful state of mind seems to be important because you have to be aware of how the pendulum is moving, in what ways it's moving, and why. It requires a certain level of focus and concentration in its own right. But then you have to be open and aware and in a slightly anxious state of mind. Because in that slightly anxious and vertigo type state of mind, that's when you're more likely to receive something. And then you have to train yourself that the arm will respond in a certain way, providing certain movements of the pendulum in order to bring about the apparent answer that you seek. Whether you're using things like a pendulum board and you're going over, I don't know, colors or astrological symbols or planets or demons, or maybe you've even laid out a tarot deck with a few key cards on it and you want to try and use whichever particular card that the pendulum lands on as being the one that's going to give you the right message for today, for instance. Okay, so instead of an actual Ouija board type device, you end up with a pack of cards which you can then create your own Ouija type device. Also, there are some people who have built skills of perception with both the pendulum and the cards simultaneously, who would end up using both together. This thing here is much more difficult. It's much more difficult because you're probably approaching it with a certain level of superstition and fear. But if you do that, again, you're a silly billy, okay? Completely a silly billy. The only real difficulty with this is essentially posture. I want to get myself a meditation stool so I can raise my backside up and I can be more on top of the board when I'm doing it cross-legged on the floor, okay? That would be the next right thing to do. But with this, you got to practice with it, okay? So you do your quick brown fox jumping over the lazy dog type experiment, just practice spelling things out on it, because you get yourself used to the idea, alright, that words get spelled out in a certain way. Then it's a question of trying to find a way of changing your state of mind and perception so that the things that you receive can get translated into words. And then of course you've got to have sufficient physicality to be able to hold your position, hold your meditation, and then spell out the words, alright, in any way you actually want, alright. In doing that, many times over, you personally start to get a feeling for where the letters are on the board. Your subconscious mind gets a feeling for where the letters are on the board, whichever board you've got or you've made, okay? And the position of yes and no, and the numbers, and male versus female versus sun versus moon, and then goodbye at the end of it. Okay? Then, after a period of time, you will get the occasional moment when it will appear that the planchette is moving by itself, because you're operating predominantly on the subconscious mind. Remember, your subconscious mind regulates your breathing, your digestion, hormone balances, I suppose, and God alone knows what else. Alright, the subconscious mind is a conscious entity in its own right, and it's also got built into it all of your history and your memories and your trauma and your associations and how you have built up your perception on reality. So a good way of doing this is to take a period of time. I mean, within occultism, within religion and spirituality, 40 days and 40 nights often comes up a lot. Alphonse Louis Constant suggested you should spend 40 days on a vegetarian diet prior to doing a ritual. Okay, and that's not even remotely connected to the whole Lenten giving up of this, that, and the other that Christians do. It's just a question of purifying the mind, purifying the body, improving your state of well-being, and of course your clarity of mind, maybe reducing some bad microbiomes in your digestive system and increasing some positive microbiomes, so your body and your mind is clearer and healthier, and therefore it's easier to do. Alright, that's just another attitude or approach. But having a body which is working well, having a mind which is working well, having a life which is in which you have, behind closed doors. Obviously, you won't want to do this on the bus on the way to work. Playing around with a board and making sure that you're learning how to use it. After a while, you may decide it's not for you, it's not the right tool for you, and then you'll go back to other things which is much more appropriate to where you are. As you carry on playing around with weird stuff, your skills become different. Very different. And some of the things which I used to be able to do in my 20s, I can't do now. Okay, because my perceptions have changed, my mind has changed, the orientation or structure of my energy field has changed, maybe my chakras have changed as I've grown, I don't know. But there are some things which I used to be able to do which I just can't do as well now. And there's other things which I can do better. And the same will be for you, because that's part of how you are changing and growing as an energetic being. Alright, as a human being, as a being of consciousness and thought and biochemistry and electrochemistry and all the other quantum, weird stuff that goes on inside us. But Hopefully now I think you can understand that this is a different skill set to this, which is a different skill set to these, and it is self-training that makes it, in inverted commas, work, or indeed for something strange to happen. But also, with any results you get, it's not a question of believing it. I mean, some people say to me, like, well, as a psychic, well, what do you think is going to happen in 3 weeks' time in my relationship? Like, what's going to happen in your relationship life is up to you, talking to your partner and sorting your life out, actually. You know. And there's some things which I don't have power over, and there's no such thing as objective fate if there is some control, some choices, and some free will. It is true that some people develop in terms of patterns of who they are and what they're about, so they end up following different pathways in life. But there's others who have more choice over things, and it's a question of putting the right choices into effect in your life when looking at your future. So what these tools should be used for would be to provide another point of view and another perspective, rather than something to run your life. All right? You don't want to take the same attitude towards divination as the fundamentalist Christians do towards Bible literalism, because that's bollocks. And trying to see this stuff from that same point of view of, oh my god, the Ouija board said it, therefore it must be true, or the card said it, so it must be true. You know, the cards have said something, the Ouija board said something, so what? Let's look at it objectively. All right? And see how that objectively connects with objective known reality. That's the ultimate test, and that's what you got to think about if you're engaging with all this stuff. All right? My name's Nick Dutch, and this is the way I see things as of today. And I wish you all the best for you and yours, your family.